Okay, go ahead. There it is. There it is. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to our February meeting of AFP Southern Arizona. So glad you had some time to get to know each other. One of the things that we've been talking with lots of members about is increasingly finding opportunities to, just be with each other, just to spend some time with each other, which is, one of the things we're missing. We'll get back to in person as soon as we can, but until then, like I said, glad you had some time to get to talk. So I am very pleased to welcome our speaker for today. When it comes to nonprofit leadership and civic engagement, Taniqua Broughton is a real powerhouse in the state of Arizona and beyond. She is the CEO of Verve Simone Consulting and the executive director of the State of Black Arizona. I'm sure you've all read her wonderful bio as you saw it in social media and newsletter and wherever else you may have seen it. She, to me, has this really fascinating way of combining art with science, of finding nuance and personality, especially through data. I was just rewatching some of the session from last August that she participated in with this really all-star panel that was titled Generosity of Spirit, which is a little plug for our AFP Southern Arizona YouTube page. You can go back and check out things you might have missed in the past. But I was overwhelmed with Taniqua, your incisiveness and your expertise that you bring to social justice through fundraising especially. So we're very blessed to have you with us today. Everyone, please welcome Taniqua Broughton.
Oh, Scott, thank you so much. I feel so honored to have gotten that bio. I'm going to have to carry you with me everywhere now to share that. So this is a wonderful opportunity because today we're going to talk about authentic relationships. And do you have them? Do you show up the way that you say or believe that you show up? And so I'm just really excited to share, I guess, some of my tools or the ingredients of how I think about it. So you'll get a little nugget in today's, I like to say, Taniqua's toolbox to move things forward. And so I'm going to put up my screen so I can kind of walk through some things. All right. So you had a chance to read my bio. And so while our conversation is about how authentic are your relationships, our relationships are a reflection of who we are as individuals. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different experiences. And the way we communicate and the way we lead is all very different as well. And with that, because a lot of my work is very much rooted into EDI, equity, diversity, inclusion, I always start off with a land acknowledgement. It is very important for me to always acknowledge the lands in which we reside on, and also make sure that there is honor and respect to how we will communicate, understanding that we all communicate very differently. So I'm going to put up a slide that just shows some pictures, but I'm going to read my quick statement that I will share with you. And I believe everyone is familiar with the land acknowledgement, but what I'll share really quickly with you, and I'm actually going to make sure I stop my video. Perfect. Is that we just need to make sure that when we think about how we're working and communicating with each other, that we're using our mindfulness. We're being present. So this next sort of hour is an opportunity for us to be present, as well as we talk about different things, we will be learning concepts and also sharing who we are and histories that we may know or may not know. So this is the moment for me where we start in solidarity. We are now officially one. And so Verve Simone Consulting acknowledges that there are 22 Native nations in Arizona that inhabit the lands where we have lived and worked for centuries. We recognize that Native and Indigenous people are an integral part of our community, resilient in responding to and healing from a legacy of violence, displacement, and migration. With these truths spoken, we hope to build mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and differences, sharing our gratitude for Native American, Indigenous, Alaskan, Native, and specific Islander communities that lead, inform, and partner with the Association for fundraising professionals. Humbly, we commit to continuing the learning of our Indigenous communities. Excuse me for that. If you are comfortable and you haven't done so, please declare your pronoun and please do so in your name tag so that we can begin this journey together. All right. So this is a quick just recap again of who I am. Verb Simone. I do a lot of work in equity. I talk about a leadership role at WestStaff, which is the Western States Arts Federation. It is our Western region representative of 13 states that support there's 6 different regionals that kind of report up or support up to the National Endowment for the Arts. And I serve on the Board of Trustees as the chair-elect. Also, as already shared by Scott, Executive Director of the State of Black Arizona. So what are the session objectives today? So hopefully in the next, 55 minutes, we'll have the opportunity to identify your leadership style, identify who is in your relationship closet. Yes, you have a relationship closet. And then the process of this sort of framework that I have created, which is called Real Intentional Time, Communication, and Trust. Yes, you can make up your own framework. All right, so I want to kind of set the tone around what we're doing today, because many of you, if you know my work, it always starts with you. I'm not going to do all the work today. I may do a lot of the talking, but a lot of this will be looking at yourself. So I think it's important to kind of put this quote into place. So self-awareness is a clear understanding of your personality and how others perceive you. It is an essential tool for successful leadership and a trait of all good managers should strive to attain. So self-awareness, I think, is so critical to this conversation we're going to have about how authentic you are as a leader. Also, I think it's important, as we did our moment of solidarity, also, we need to hold brave space. I want you to feel comfortable being able to talk and share, because we are breaking off in groups, as well as we will have a group share opportunity. And it's important to actually feel like you are comfortable learning, sharing, and growing about your either identities and your values. And so we want this to be an inclusive conversation where everyone feels like they can speak, feel comfortable, share ideas, as well as ask questions. And so how do we do that safely? I feel like we do that safely by actually setting some norms. And because we have a time sensitivity today, I'm just going to share a few of mine that I would hope that each of you would be willing to honor. So as we are talking and sharing, please work to try to suspend judgment and assumptions. Don't try to sort of figure out what you think the person is saying, but really try to listen, be present, be there. 1, explore versus react. Take a moment to really work to pause, to really explore what they're saying, ask questions, then really be more reactive to things. Also acknowledge your own confirmed biases. We all have them. And sometimes as we are just sharing and discovering our own leadership styles, looking at who will be in our relationship closet, you may start to feel things or experience them. Just confirm your own biases. And then last, we must do this. I feel like in COVID, we have experienced this. We need to give each other grace and empathy. I have operated it day in. I have to give it to myself. So today, as we begin to share and you think about what is on your mind or what maybe you need to think further about, it's okay to give yourself a little grace and empathy. All right. Any questions, any thoughts? Because I'm ready to go into what's next. All right, I see none. All right, so we're going to do an intro activity. So this is where you got to pay attention to what I'm about to share. So I like to utilize Tom Rath's strength-based leadership. So many of you have probably already taken tests for what is your strength leadership. And so Tom Rath really, I think, gets us in this thought of a leadership space. We can't talk about authentic relationships till we actually really understand how we lead and how we communicate. We just don't jump there, because the way that I actually communicate and lead gets me a certain result. But if you show up and you're very different than I am, then there needs to be another way and strategy. We may have all of the same things in the toolbox, but what we take out may be very different. So I want to kind of give you the opportunity to warm up your thoughts around this. So there are 4 different leadership styles we're going to actually explore. And I want you to identify the one that is your dominant. That is the one today you're going to select that you lead with. You may actually utilize others, but is the one that is the most dominant. So when you look to the screen to your left where it says execution, that leadership style is an executor. You are a person who knows how to make things happen. Things happen in your office, in your work, in groups, because you get things done. You take charge, you lead things. You are okay with being called bossy or taking charge or leading. You are fine because you execute and you get things done. So think about if that is your leadership style. Below that, where the image where we have sort of 3 sort of people on one puzzle square reaching out, that is an influencer. Your leadership style is considered an influencer. You help teams really reach a much broader audience. So you bring people along. You are making sure that in your role, you are influencing people and people follow you because of the things that you share and you do. And you really work to make sure that they are always at the core of that. So either you're executor, you're influencer, but there's 2 others. So let's get to that. So if you look to the right at the top screen, there is an image. It says, it's all about relationships. Oh, yes, you know who you are. Those are our relationship builders. You are the glue that holds the team together. Everybody knows it, you know, but it's all about the relationship. It's all about making sure you have it. It's all about working it. It's about being intentional about the individual needs of people and making sure that they have that. So you build your leadership off of relationships you have or you need to have to get things done. And then the last one at the bottom, where it's the stacks of different sizes of the actual rocks, is the strategic thinker. You are the one who actually keeps us all focused on what it could be. Where's the long game? How do we walk down the road in the dark? You're thinking about what should be happening 5 years from now. You get everyone to start thinking about things as a big picture. So at this time, you are that person ultimately that sets a lot of time the vision. So take a moment, soak that in. So on the left side, either you're an executor, you get things done. At the bottom, you actually are an influencer. You're pulling people together, pulling them along. You are that person. Folks are following you. At the top, you are all about relationships. And then at the bottom, you are our visionary. So here's the question I want you to answer. How authentic are you in the dominant style of your leadership? So if you're telling me this is your leadership style, how authentic are you? How do you practice this, knowing that people actually do believe and see that happening through your behaviors? So if you haven't, this is an opportunity for you to pick your dominant style. And then, Ori, this will be great for people to then be able to go into the breakout group of the style that they feel like is their dominant, and have about maybe 10 minutes to sort of talk about that.
Okay, sounds good. Opening the rooms right now.
Excellent. Well, welcome back from your breakout groups. Hopefully you had a chance to sort of talk about yourself, the leadership style that you had. And so I don't want to take too much time, but I wanted to have an opportunity to allow people to share if they wanted to, specifically about maybe the discussion that they had in their groups around how authentic they are or how they see the authenticity of their leadership style in the way in which they lead. So the first group was the executors. Does anybody from the executor group want to speak or share?
I will. Being an executor means getting things done. And we talked about that. And no matter what our position is in any organization, whether we're a manager or not, we work hard to get things done. And as I told my group, I managed for years, and my boss called me Nike because my motto was just do it. And you don't have to be worried about people calling you bossy or anything like that. But the other people in my group have interesting jobs and jobs that require execution. And so it was a really good conversation, I think. I hope they agree.
Cool. No, thanks for those notes, Jerry. And I think you're absolutely right. When you think about it, it really is about people appreciating you in the way you show up and get things done. And it may not necessarily be a competency or a skill set that they have, but it's really about appreciating how your being is. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right. Anybody from the influencer group, those who influence people, we all just follow and flock to you.
I'll share. It's interesting. I would say I was really torn, and I think a couple of us were, between the relationship builder and the influencer. And I could see some similarities there. I think for me, it's easier to think about what I'm not. I am not an executor. I am not a just do it person. Good for you, Jerry. I'm the thorn in your side that's like, well, did we think about this? What's the best path forward? Every detail needs to be in line for me. And it's important to me to bring others along. So I think that's where the influencer really comes through. I think to have a team be successful, they need to have buy-in, they need to understand. I need to be able to support them and lead them so that we can accomplish our goals together. And I find it difficult when someone isn't bought into the process. And I've been that person where I'm not bought in, and I can be a challenge in that way too. But yeah, it's interesting. I just took my strengths finder, and my top category was woo, which I think is fun because it sounds like woo in my head. And maybe I'm really just a little woohoo. But I want people to feel included, and I think that's really what being an influencer is about.
I love it. Thank you so much, Travis. Think about, especially Jerry, what you talk about getting it done. Travis, you and your team about those skills, because that really will think about how authentic you are and how you either use your leadership skills to truly show up authentic with people. All right. Relationship builders, where are you? Are you out there?
I thought, like, I can't believe no one's speaking up.
We talked a lot about the interesting boundaries and navigating those boundaries of being a fundraiser in your professional life, and then moving through your life being like your personal life, and how your fundraising hat kind of just like carries over into your personal life a little bit. And like,
Ed, are you on the line?
What?
Oh my God.
So that was like the main thing that we were talking about, was like how to balance those boundaries, and like where are you showing up and who are you showing up as?
mean, Hattie, you're absolutely right. I think what's great is we're talking about authentic relationships, the relationship people like to build relationships, but there's still a boundary that needs to happen in how you cultivate, how you participate. And that's a little bit about what we'll talk about moving forward. So thank you for sharing that. And remember some of your strong points and competencies that make you guys special in your leadership. All right, last, our strategic thinkers. We know you're thinking. Let us know.
Go for it, Lana.
Gee, thanks, Scott. So Scott and I were the only two in the strategic thinkers breakout and found that we had a lot of similarities. We also discussed that it was challenging to sort of quickly differentiate between the four styles and what was really our strength or what was our dominant leadership style. And so I went with the leadership style that I think I am most often called upon to demonstrate in my current work environment. And one of the things that I was saying was that the role of being the person who sort of carries the larger strategy for my team or for my organization is something that I've sort of grown into over time, because there certainly was a time earlier in my career where I felt like if I looked out around the room, I was not clearly the one who had the big picture ideas or had the depth of understanding to be able to lay out the larger strategy and guide people in that kind of direction. And that's something that I've grown into and gotten more comfortable with over years of experience. So, Scott, did you want to share anything?
Valana, that's all great. Here's the thing. You have other people who think for you. That's the great part of your actual leadership strategy. People execute, they think, and they bring people along. And I think that is what you have to think about as how people trust, how authentic they think that is, and how much they want to follow you as well because of the way that you guys think. So thank you for sharing. All right, so we're going to keep going because time is very much ticking. And so what I want to do at this point is move us along. I want you to keep in the back of mind where you actually selected and thought about where you are in this process. We're going to skip just some of the details of this. And I want to jump to very much who is in your relationship closet? Because guess what? You have a relationship closet. Hopefully it's not empty to the left. On the right, it's pretty much full, but it is important for us to think about that before I share this framework. And so that is the image. And now I want you to sort of do a personal inventory. So if you don't have your computer up or you don't have a sheet of paper, now is a good time. But I want you to spend a couple of minutes kind of reflecting on these questions below and sort of write them down for everyone who fits in these categories. So who do you have in your closet? So when you think about your relationship closet, who's in it? Who is in it, whether it be personal or professional, however you want to look at this, but who's actually in it? The other thing is, who do you want to have in your closet? Who's not in it, but you want them to be in it? Whether it's a donor, whether it's a new friend, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a family member, whoever that is, that's something for you to think about. And who have you lost in the closet that impacts you? Because we've lost people in our relationship closet as well. So I want you to think about this from who do you have in your closet? Who do you want in your closet? And then what have you lost? So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes, or if you can just keep us on track for people to just take a moment to think about their relationship closet. Or are we at the halfway mark at this point? We should be.
We've got 1 minute and 40 seconds left.
Perfect. All right, so I took down the slide because when we share, I like it to be an intimate experience.
Another 40 seconds. Would you like me to go back to gallery view so everybody can see everybody?
Absolutely, Ori. Thank you so much.
Of course. And if it doesn't show up as gallery for everybody, if you put your mouse up at the top, there's a view button that you can click. So you'll see everything.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right. All right, the buzzer has buzzed. All right, first of all, who even knew they had a relationship closet? Who knew they had a relationship closet? Nobody here? All right, do you like the idea though of having a relationship closet? Maybe, sort of. No, Travis, not at all. Well, no one should be in a closet, but the idea of the actual relationship closet is not something closed, but something you gather. It's the collection. So don't think about it as that. So anybody want to share their thoughts just about like who's in their closet, who they realize who's not in their closet, and anybody they're lost in their closet when you're just thinking about the relationships you have or don't have in the way in either that you lead or interact with people.
I think I find it interesting sort of thinking about like who's in my closet also in different areas of my life. You know, it's like I think the first thing, especially since we're here, is I started thinking about my workplace, and it's like, okay, well, who's serving what role in my workplace? But then I started thinking about my family too, you know, and it's like, okay, well, just within my household, like who's doing what? My kids, and it's like, okay, well, where are they headed? So I thought that was just fascinating.
Cool, thanks for sharing, Scott. Anybody else?
My closet's really big, which is great. And I don't know who I want in my closet. And it's really hard to talk about the people that are not in my closet anymore, especially when I tried to have them communicate with me about what was happening. And they chose not to do that. They didn't want to further the relationship. So it pains me.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know that last question was created and put there for that intent. Because sometimes as we think we're really good relationships builder, we have great intentions and relationships with people. The challenging part is sometimes it doesn't always work out. And so I think the best way is when you're looking at who is in your closet or not, sometimes it is about a season or reason or a situation where you have an opportunity to reflect back on yourself. But you also have the opportunity to say, you know what, I may not be okay with it, but I got to be okay to grow and move forward. So it really was for us to think about, you know, who's in it, who potentially we want. And if you still don't know who you want, this is where sort of this next framework will hopefully get you going. So before I move on, did anybody else want to share anything in there? Closet or just the conversation. And again, it doesn't have to, it can be a house, it could be whatever. I just wanted to give just a cute analogy around like, you know, these are the people that you really hold close to you. And so that's just sort of how I looked at it. Anything else?
I was just struck by what you just said. I think that the old adage of the reason or season or a lifetime, that friends come into your life or relationships for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And when they leave your life, I just learned that I guess they're just for a season, or I guess they're just for a reason. I broke mine into, you know, family, friends, professional donors and colleagues, and my closet is filled with a lot of people. But I also understand something that Ori said about, or wrote in the chat about, maybe I don't need as many in the closet as I used to, because COVID has changed a lot of things with everybody's life and everybody's relationships with people.
Absolutely. And, you know, it seems like as many of us age, some things that we cared about before we don't care so much about, even if we are in the professional sense. So let's spend the next bit of our time specifically on sort of this framework that I've developed. So let me put it up. All righty. Thank you, Ori. So we shared out. All right. So I came up with this concept. So I love turtles, just so you guys know. So we don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenges. And so that's where my image is there. And you see the turtle is literally trying to swim in the sand. And that's not really, you know, the place. But I came up with this concept thinking about how I go through things in my mind. What's real, intentional, time, communication, and trust. And these are all the things that we do sort of as a framework when we're thinking about our authentic relationships. So what do you mean by these things? So this is going to be like a quick sort of like drive through on it, but I want you to think about how it applies to you or how you do things as you think about how authentic your relationship is. So I always say the first one is real. You have to be real in who you are and how you show up. So you need to really think about how authentic are you when you show up? Are you showing up and you're not comfortable even in how you're even showing up to the conversation with the donor, with the staff person, with the person you want to hire? How are you actually, how is your energy? You have to think about how that is. What I do love about, I like to say that I show up is that I'm not perfect. There are things about me that are quirky. There are things, but people can appreciate that I show up as myself. I don't try to show up as somebody else. And so I think in the authentic realm of you thinking about, do you have those relationships? Do you feel like in your professional world, you're one way and in your personal, you're another? And what I mean by that is, are you consistent with their characteristics and values of how people see you? Because I think that is important. I think you need to be, and your values need to flow throughout that. That's where the authenticity comes in, is that you are who you say you are. There may be a level of how you show up professionally, but when it comes to how you interact, people who know you personally may know you at a level where you have a good time with you, but the core of who you are is consistent. I think the other part of real that's important around thinking about your relationships is, are you present in the moment? Are you there? Sometimes we don't realize that when we are trying to develop a relationship or in a relationship with somebody, are we present? A lot of these things that I'm going to share with you, I look at it in this sort of concept. So this is the framework, but this is what I say. Why do we always meet somebody and want to go straight from courting to marriage? Just work like that. You kind of need to court to then date, maybe get engaged before you get married. Hopefully you don't go to the divorce. But the point of it is that we are not thinking about our relationships and how we experience getting to know people, how people get to know us. So being real is about being consistent. Are you who you say you are? And do you show up in that way? Do you practice those things? Because that's the important part of how people need to feel like when they interact with you. It's not about you have the best speech, you have this, but people know that who I'm getting is you. I'm getting Taniqua today, and that's important. The intentionality. So I think after you build on the consistency of who you are, the intentionality is that, you know, have you really thought about why you want this relationship? You know, we don't feel like we want to talk about it, whether it's a donor, whether it's somebody professional, but why do we want this relationship? What is our intention behind it? So I'm going to use an example I always say where people have decided now we want to have more representation, or we want to be much more diverse. And then you want to go and you want to meet a group or an organization or a person. And the minute that you meet them, automatically you're already asking them to join your board. Hey, you potentially got some money. That's not a fundraising practice, I know, but what happens is it happens far too often where people want to automatically go into the relationship and ask for something. And the intentionality means you need to really build upon what is it? Is this a relationship that truly I want to have that's long term? With that, asking somebody for something like going from courting to marriage before you've actually gotten to know them becomes hard. But for some reason, we tend to do it all the time. I need to go ahead and get connected to this group over here. So I'm going to go ahead and meet with them and see if they want to partner with my organization. How about we have to spend this next year getting to know this organization for this organization to even decide if they want to partner with us, but get to know us. When you think about the donor, you know, sometimes you're courting a donor for a long time before you actually get that gift. So when you think about how you show up when in relationships, what is your intention? What's the intentionality behind it? And know that you have to really understand that if you're showing up as yourself and there is intention, that intention takes time. And so time is that next one. It's about valuing the relationship. This is going to be transactional, or it's going to be something that is sustained. We have to put time in those relationships that are authentic in a way in which we think about how are we doing it with different strategies. When I think about it, I am responding to the person in, you know what, my donor really doesn't necessarily want to go to events and doesn't necessarily want to be premiered, but my donor actually wants to have a sit down lunch every quarter. That's what I do, is I make time to actually do that. Or somebody I want to get to know, I might want to work with them, but I'm not sure. I love their style. I like their energy. But actually, I really need to talk to them and spend some time with them. Any relationship that you think about that you've had over time that's been one that's sustained has come with you spending time, putting time in it, however it is, and getting to know each other just by actually sometimes being in the space and allowing that to happen. So when I'm thinking about how authentic is my relationship, when I've done time, there is intention, you know, and I'm showing up as myself. Can I pick up the phone and call that person and be vulnerable to them? Can that person be vulnerable to me? And if that is not what is happening on your trajectory, there's some challenges between the intentionality that you have and to how you're showing up. But time must be put in. However it is, it has to. I love the fact that I get to meet people all the time. But I also know that meeting people all the time, I get to know more about them and they get to know more about me. I might have met Ori almost like a year ago for a workshop, but over time, I've gotten to interact specifically with her about different things. I've got to learn different things that she's doing. She's got to learn different things about me, and it continues to grow. And potentially there's an opportunity to actually maybe do something long-term, but it comes because we spent time really looking at how real we show up, our intentionality, because of the time we put in. And then the next level is communication. A lot of this sort of threads together, but this is sort of like Taniqua's little way of wanting to communicate it to you, is communication has to be constant. I always say this with any of the sponsors and donors I have, they shouldn't be surprised by what you're doing or not doing if you're communicating. If your relationship of how you show up is something that you are sharing, the reality of it is that at the end of the day, there's constant communication. Not that you're loading them up with newsletters and emails, but the communication is one that is authentic to how you show up and how they also want it and receive it. That at this point, you are in a relationship with somebody where you're both meeting the needs and what you want. Yes, it truly is an authentic relationship as one in which you're meeting each other's needs, whether it's a donor, whether it's a sponsorship group. You have to spend the time to really figure that out. And sometimes it takes a short amount of time for others or a longer amount of time, but it's the time you have to put in to really work. And the last one can happen throughout the process, but I always say then trust is built. Trust has to be built because you're spending time. You're actually showing up as who you are. And there is a clear intention of what and who you are and what you want in this process. When people come to me and they're like, oh, Taniqua, I want to be your friend. How about this? I just don't pick up friends off the street. Sorry, I say like, but I do get to know people and we figure out if we have these synergies of that. You might end up being an acquaintance. You might end up being a close friend, but it has to just happen organically. And I think that you have to really look at how you show up in your leadership communication. A lot of the donors and folks that I work with like the way that I lead. They like the way that I show up and communicate. And others who like the work that I do, I might have to figure out how can I still be Taniqua and show up, but the way in which I navigate the intentionality and the time and the communication may be a little bit different than sort of my dominant style. But the goal is to still authentically be you and understand that are those people staying and sticking with you with that. And so the trust is you're making sure that you're building trust because you put these layers in. You also are trusting yourself, being vulnerable, and hopefully you're allowing them to feel like they can trust you by having integrity, by doing and saying the things that you will do, but also being responsible for your actions. In relationships, we will make mistakes. We will mess up, but owning it and being able to do that is a huge part of being authentic. It's not being a doormat, but it's very much so realizing that at the end of the day, it's about being responsible for that. So I feel like you could be working these all at one time, but this is how I really think about how do you have authentic relationships? And the relationships that I feel like I have with my sponsors, my donors, my board members, my friends are ones where I'm always practicing how am I showing up? What do I understand is our relationship? If it is one way, I need to communicate what I believe you're perceiving and what I'm perceiving so we can get on the same page. You want a friendship? I don't. So how do we make sure we have a conversation to get there, or we have a conversation about what is actually the behaviors that we are practicing? Because you can be my friend and I could not be your friend. The reality is we have to both be each other's friend by putting that in. And then the time, the communication, and the trust. So I hopefully gave you a snippet of sort of how you would look at the relationships you have, the relationships you want, and even the relationships that you have lost. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. And Ori, if we want to go to gallery, this is an opportunity for anybody to comment or share at this point. Thank you.
Well, we certainly do have a moment or two. So if there are any questions out there, please feel free to pop in.
I'm just curious that I know that you also run the state of Black Arizona, and I know that's not your capacity that you're here in today, but is there anything you could share, anything new on that front? Or?
Yeah, so thanks, Jennifer. So many of you guys know, and maybe I'll answer that if you want to in the context of maybe this workshop, but I wear two different hats. And so when I think about my communication and the people that I have, I'm also very intentional about some of the folks who know me in the state of Black Arizona space and some of the people who know me in my Verb Simone space. And that doesn't mean that people are in closets that I close. But what it actually means is that I understand that there's a level of the way that I show up in those communications and how I interact with people in the other. But I also work really hard to say, I am not one or the other. I am both. You know, this is what I do. This is my brand. I am an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur of many different things. And so with that, I really work to do that. What I can say to you, Jennifer, if you're not on our mailing list, 2 days ago, we just released a white paper on rare diseases. And so if you haven't had a chance, it is on our website. Please check that out. You know, rare diseases is not something that people know or talk about, but it's something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in triple negative breast cancer. So I try to work and partner with some of the organizations that will allow us to talk about things that we don't always hear at the forefront.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, on behalf of, oh, sorry, is there one more?
Well, I was going to say, Sarah put in there, yes, ensuring that the context isn't transactional, that there is an authentic connection. It's just something that I appreciate you saying. A lot of times we know and we can feel when something isn't authentic, no matter how authentic we are. But I think what our real goal is to realize that even if it starts as a transaction, because some things start as a transaction, are you really being mindful of thinking about how to elevate that? Otherwise, something that's transactional will stay there. So if you only call somebody once a year, or you only interact with them when you have your festival, or when you interact with them when it's your year end, yeah, you got a transaction there. But that's where we have to be mindful of where things are transactional and where we need to begin to elevate that, because then there isn't anything really of substance when it is transactional.
That's really on point for fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually, an interesting sort of way to do that also is to pay attention to what your donor wants, because I've noticed that there are certain people who just want a transactional relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go to coffee, they don't want to get to know me, they just want to do their thing, you know, and so, you know, if we're going to be respectful to others, we have to respect the way that they want to sort of show up in that relationship too. So I loved your list because it really is about all of those pieces together.
We will take your money. That is fine. You know, we all understand that. But we, like you said, or it's about the people who want to sit down and have long lunches, and you're like, this is just not my leadership style. We got to figure out a way in which we could still meet their needs. So where is the intersection of, I always like to say, are you studying sort of like your client? Are you studying the people that there is an intersection? Every single person on this Zoom, if we were to talk, I would have some connection with you where we could have a conversation. And I think that's the point of it all, is that we have to find out what that is. If it's the same part of the country we grew up, or city, or age group, or children we have, that's where we find our intersections to really work past that. Because as human beings, when we begin to talk and interact with each other, you know, it doesn't matter what everything else has that layers on us. It's about the moment of the conversation.
Well, Taniqua, on behalf of everyone here, thank you so much. This has been so fascinating. I think we all came for maybe a professional lesson and got one in our personal lives as well along the way. So this was just really wonderful. I'm sure we could spend hours more, like you said, just learning about each other and establishing those relationships. But we're so appreciative of your time and your expertise, and for sharing with us and being so authentic with us. I know we're up against time here. We'll stick around for any of you that want to hang out and chat and talk a little bit more. Just a reminder, next month we're meeting on March 11th. Our speaker will be Gabriella Cazares-Kelly, a Pima County recorder. The topic will be non-traditional fundraising for non-traditional candidates. I know there's a lot of people excited about that one, so please make sure you sign up early. Couple other things, we've got nominations for MPD awards coming up soon, so start thinking about it now, and we'll give you the information within the next, I think, month or two. And then we've got our locally grown campaign. There's going to be a lot of different ways to participate in that this year. For those of you who are looking to make a donation, we can do monthly donations through the website, make it easier throughout the year. But for those of you who are looking for different ways to participate, we'll have that as well. So thank you again, Taniqua. Thank you everybody for coming. Have a wonderful Friday and a weekend, and we'll see you all soon.